Not every game can make horrific things beautiful. The trend recently is to make video games appear as realistic as technology will allow, and yeah, of course, it goes without saying that there's beauty in the real world, but in the real world, in real life, the horrific stuff is so ugly, and video games with their hyper frame rates and infinite pixels and advanced ray tracing are going to inherently reflect that ugliness and their violence and their despair. And this is not to say that there's less artistic merit to these ultra-realistic games. Clearly the artists who are working super hard to bring graphics like we saw in The Last of Us 2 or Resident Evil 2 Remake to life are supremely talented, but look at these visuals from these two technical powerhouses. Are they beautiful? They're beautifully rendered, sure, they're beautifully drawn, they're beautifully realized, but are they actual expressions of beauty? Lost Ember is a 3D, narrative-based adventure game developed by Mooneye Studios and released for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC in 2019, and for the Switch a year later. It's a linear game with a clear start and a clear ending and very little in the way of filler or distractions, and in an era where there seems to be an unspoken challenge for which game can take up the most hard drive space, I do find it refreshing when video game designers can rein in the excess and focus on something a little more specific. Lost Ember is trying to tell an ugly story, and it's determined to tell it in a beautiful manner. Another video reviewer could easily find like half a dozen ways to dive into the question of whether Mooneye Studios was successful in that particular endeavor, but, as usual, we are not here to determine the quality of the product, except where it serves to help us answer one important question. How chill is Lost Ember? I have developed a rating system to quantify the qualities that determine a chill video game, because obviously the most chill thing I could possibly do is start assigning numbers and judgments. All categories will be scored 0 through 5, and at the end the sum of the scores will be multiplied by 2 to give us a total score out of 100. Lost Ember wants to tell an ugly story in a beautiful way, but if we were to strip that mission statement to its most basic form, we could also accurately say, Lost Ember wants to tell a story. It might come off as reductive, but it's not 100% redundant to point it out. I've played a lot of video games that make no attempt to tell a story, and I've played even more video games that seem to include the story begrudgingly, as if it's just there to justify all the gameplay. Lost Ember, in contrast, is so intent on telling its story that it's the gameplay that feels tacked on to justify the story being told in video game form. The result of this is a story that was very well paced throughout my 4-hour playthrough. We are never dropped into an open world and left to our own devices. Rather, the story unfolds as we make our way down a very set path. We can award the story pacing a full chill rating of 5 because we are never bored, but there is also no sense of urgency because the story is told in a framing device of flashbacks. The single path that we are set on from the beginning of the game means there is no need for actual quests. Linearity can be a very chill way to design a game, particularly a game designed to be played in 1 or 2 sittings. At no point did I feel like I was missing out on content by not finding the million collectibles scattered throughout the small maps. These collectibles, relics, and mushrooms, I think, are literally never required to advance in the game. They are 100% optional, and because I got no satisfaction from finding them, I didn't go out of my way to get them, and the game never punished me for it. I would guess that lots of players, at least once, but probably more than that, are going to head back to point A instead of advancing to point B, and the game does nothing to tell us about that. Probably in the service of immersion, Mooneye Studios opted not to give us any method of highlighting our destination on the map or just on the screen, and at least not one that I could find. If there is a way to do it, in my defense of not knowing how, I also couldn't find a way to just look at the controller layout. The colored flora indicates that you're on the right path, but you can probably already see the problem. If we were to stray from the path to grab a collectible mushroom and then come back, the colors don't do anything to tell us which direction we were going. The truly frustrating aspect is the only hint built into the game to tell us where we're going is an unreliable, vague hint from our floating companion. Lost Ember receives a 4 for quest design. So the game achieves a very relaxing pacing and a very relaxing linear design, but the story itself is one of the least chill narratives ever told. There is a specific detail we shouldn't talk about in the video because I'm sure it's considered a plot twist, but in broad terms, Lost Ember weaves a nihilistic yarn of oppression, revolution, betrayal, and genocide. This is the sort of content I expect to find in like RPG dungeon slaying video games or straight up horror movies, not a game whose release trailer included only the most gorgeous shots of a bird swooping down to a herd of buffalo or the wolf running majestically past the ancient ruins. Lost Ember's description on the PlayStation Store describes the plot as, quote, a tale of loyalty, despair, and betrayal, end quote, and this is about as nice a way as there is to describe the plot without straight up lying about it. If I were an actual game critic, I could go into some of the odd contradictions or plot holes present in the story, and the odd shift to redemption seems particularly jarring because nobody in the story really seems worthy of redemption or did anything to earn it besides going from point A to point B in the game. But I'm not a real game critic, and the only reason I am assigning a score of 0 for the story content is because the plot itself is not chill at all. From the inciting incident to the denouement, people get murdered or otherwise suffering in every narrative cutscene. The only way this game could even be on a chill game radar with a chill story content score of 0 is if it were told in a very chill way, and by now, the screen captures have shown this to be true of Lost Ember. The game's beautiful artwork is what is going to draw in most players who have seen the trailer, and even when the game decides to show a building on fire with loved ones trapped inside, the images, it's beautiful. The image which immediately follows it, a character weeping in rage and anguish, is also beautiful. It's one of the most horrific things you could put in a story, made all the more worse by the questionable payoffs at the end, but the violence is implicit and absolutely gorgeous to watch. I think almost any developer could make scenes like this, or this, or this look amazing. I mean, tell a bunch of talented artists to create a lush, colorful world for a bird to fly around in, and you're going to get a lot of beautiful stuff. But I think it takes a different kind of crazy to decide to tell this story and show everything that they did, but still achieve the E for everyone fantasy violence rating just because it's presented in such a chill way. Lost Ember deserves the full chill rating of 5 for its art direction, almost specifically because the story content is an abysmally low 0. The music in Lost Ember is another standout feature, and at the time of writing and recording this script, I haven't decided if I should use it in the video or not. I'm afraid that the copyright rules will get the review taken down, and the OST is readily available on this website anyway. The music grows in intensity at the appropriate moments, particularly in cutscenes or QuickTime events, and then it'll lull back down to a chill ambient vibe during most of the gameplay sections. There are cutscenes in Lost Ember in which an editor could easily splice in the Dillinger escape plan or the chariot, and the hardcore metal would fit the vibe just fine, but of course, Lost Ember's music never approaches anything close to aggressive, even when the story goes that direction. We can award the full chill rating of 5 for the music. Like the rest of the gameplay aspect of Lost Ember stands in contrast with the unforgiving nature of its plot. There are no fail states in the game, which means 0 enemies to overcome and 0 puzzles to solve, unless you count the obtuse puzzle of where we're supposed to go next sometimes. The only way we can die in the game is falling off a ledge or going out of bounds on the map, and doing so incurs 0 penalty. We immediately respawn exactly where we were when we died with no progress lost. Lost Ember receives the maximum chill rating of 5 for dying. The saving system implemented in Lost Ember is not quite so easy to nail down. We have no choice but to play in a strict autosave file, strict in the sense that we cannot override at any point with a manual save, nor can we switch to another file and leave our progress stagnant in the original file. To make matters only a little bit less chill, the autosave icon is apparently not indicative of a checkpoint. I'm really not sure what like 50% of these autosaves are saving because regardless of when that icon starts spinning, if we were to exit the app and come back to it, we're going to start at a preordained checkpoint, and none of these actual checkpoints are made clear to us when we reach them in-game. We would be giving a lower score for the saving category, but Lost Ember has a nice feature on the main options screen, a level select. And this level select involves what I assume are the built-in checkpoints inside each level, Plus, it's available to us in real time as we are making progress, as opposed to how some games allow the level select only after the game itself is completed. Lost Ember receives a chill rating of 3 for its saving system. The gameplay mechanics of Lost Ember will undoubtedly leave some players unsatisfied, but remember, we are approaching these chill reviews from the perspective of chill, not necessarily overall quality. I previously mentioned QuickTime events, but I only called them that because of the conventional term. They are decidedly slow time events, and they're always just a single press of the same button. The standard left joystick to move, right joystick for the camera works just fine. Sprinting with the right trigger gets us pretty much everywhere we want to go. Our default character is the wolf, but we can also turn into other animals, and this is treated in a very chill way. There is always an on-screen prompt when there is an animal close by that we can possess. Each animal has a unique ability that allows it to traverse in a different way than the wolf, and when we turn into a fish, it's obvious that the path to advance is going to be underwater. When we turn into a bird, it's obvious we need to fly to the next advancement. I can award the full chill rating of 5 because the gameplay mechanics cause me no frustration while playing the game. For all its artistic splendor, Lost Ember isn't as beautiful as it could be if it ran better. I find it difficult to really rate or punish games in this category because, while I might know a little bit about chill music or how to write a story, making a game is beyond me, and it's extremely difficult for me to pinpoint what the problem really is when it comes to technical issues. I can only describe what's happening. There were a lot of times while doing nothing but running around where I was supposed to be running around, and the frame rates would actually tank to 0 and the game would stop for a moment. Most of the other times it was merely very slow and jerky, and granted, this in no way ruins the gameplay experience because our reflexes are not being tested, but it's the immersion that suffers, and when the problems are noticeable to a forgiving layman like me, I can't award a full chill rating. Lost Ember receives a chill rating of 4 for bugs and glitches. A relatively small package should, in theory, be easier to polish up, and when it's not, it just reinforces my theory that Mooneye Studios created the gameplay as a means to their desired goal of telling this story in video game format. I played this game on my PlayStation 5 twice to capture the footage needed for the video, and through 2 playthroughs I experienced 0 crashes. In my experience, for whatever reason, this is actually pretty admirable for a smaller title that is meant to be played in 1 or 2 sittings. Lost Ember receives the full chill rating of 5 for crashes. Lost Ember, to its credit, does a long list of things that I like in a video game. Some of the scenes evoked an odd sense of déjà vu for me, which is difficult to explain because I didn't even watch the trailer for the game until well after I'd completed it. The artists and designers did a masterful job of creating a dreamlike experience, a place that feels familiar but impossible at the same time. The game has a clear goal and a streamlined approach to progression, and I appreciate these aspects as well in terms of a relaxing video game experience. After adding up the individual category scores, Lost Ember receives an overall chill rating of 82. It shines in its simplistic gameplay mechanics and artful presentation, but a bewilderingly violent and inconclusive plot prevent the game from being any kind of zen-like chill masterpiece.